Welcome to Protect, Suicide Prevention Training Podcast for healthcare professionals. I'm Manan, consultant psychiatrist, founder, and head of faculty at Progress Guide.
Hi everyone, it's Mahi, your Protect podcast host. Today is episode 4 of season 3, Own My Values. So Manan, what's in the news?
Well, a lot of my time has been taken up in getting ready for the 9th of July. We are doing an event for the NDIS support workers. It's an online event. So 9th of July, 7 p.m. And essentially, one of the things I have realized is that a lot of our support workers who work in the NDIS arena, they're often supporting people with a lot of complex needs, challenges that they find often difficult to navigate, to the extent that some patients are dealing with chronic suicidality. And there is very limited training available for our NDIS support workers. So I've just set up an evening. It's a 1-hour event, 7 p.m. Brisbane time on the 9th of July. It's a Tuesday evening. So if any one of you who is listening to this believes that it might benefit an NDIS support worker, then do forward the invite to them. We'll put it on LinkedIn, and we'll actually put the link to the Teams event on the podcast as well. In the show notes. So do forward it to anyone you believe would benefit from attending, because I do believe that there is a huge need. So yes, getting the slides ready for that and trying to customize it specifically to the social care sector.
And have you made any more progress with the new 7 Safe Steps book?
It's been a bit slow, and but we're trying to redo the entire book, and the 7 safety conversations that form the 7 safe steps, they are embedded in the Safe Life Guide app in the subscription section. For professionals, you have the conversations laid out and you can actually type them in, create PDFs from there. So what I'm trying to do is create screenshots of actual conversations, of documentation, and have them in that format in the book itself. And that is taking quite a bit of time. But, I am starting to worry a little bit because Malaysia is now less than a month away.
You need to get that going.
Yes. Well, it is going. I like things to be just so, the images need to be just so. They need to be perfect. And I know it's one of those flaws I have, but when you look at the Protect books, they look awesome. And that's because we put in a lot of time and effort into each and every image. So that's what I'm trying to do with the 7 Safe Steps, but I do need to get my act together.
And in terms of our philanthropic pursuits from Progress Guide, how has the work been with Peru?
Well, I've got a meeting on Sunday morning with Cynthia. She's based in Peru, Cynthia Lau. She's a consultant psychiatrist, and she has been doing a lot of the translating work. So it's Sunday morning, 7 a.m. for me, but I think it's 3 p.m. in Peru on the Saturday. So we will touch base. There's just too many projects going on. So you did some creative work on Instagram, which is very relevant to today's topic.
Did you like the nautical metaphor for the values images?
They were awesome. Let me just open up Instagram, and because I think that's something, we haven't got that many followers on Instagram, which is a real shame. So did you post it on LinkedIn as well? I think you did.
I did.
So the first image says, values foster hope and healing. And you have put the compass in the middle of hope for the letter O. And in healing, you have taken the I with a lighthouse. And where did you get the inspiration for that, the lighthouse?
Well, I think you worked on something before about navigating rocky waters.
Yes.
And I really just took the inspiration from that project.
So Navigating Rocky Waters, wonderful video. It's available on YouTube. It's been translated into 12 languages as well. If you haven't watched it, it's about recovery journeys. Do watch it. So the first one, it says values foster hope and healing. The second one says discover your nautical values, and it's got a steering wheel, an anchor, telescope, compass on it. Then there are these 2 lighthouses. Which values light your path? And that's a beautiful image in itself. And I love the way in which you have used the 2 Progress Guide flames as well. which values light your path, which values anchor you. That's an image of an anchor. And then there are these beautiful 4 compasses, which values lead you to your true north. And we will come to that today. Which values steer your vessel, and you got a steering wheel of, a captain's steering wheel with some oars on the top. Which values are the wind in your sails, and there's some sailing boats. Which values keep you afloat, and there's a life buoy, life jacket. Which values row your boat, and you've got some oars over there. We do talk a lot about using oar skills of motivational interviewing in the Protect training. And then the final one, values, gender, joy, and meaning, with the captain's hat, cap on the V, and then you got the steering wheel on joy, and again you're
the lighthouse
replacing the eye of meaning. A beautiful sequence of 10 images. And if you're not on Instagram, then if you are on Instagram, actually, you should
make sure you give a follow to @progress.guide.
@progress.guide, because and there are lots of other images like this that for more things in the future. So @progress.guide, if you're on Instagram, follow us for more images like this. It's awesome.
And I think that's actually a good segue to the second step in the HOPE framework, Own My Values, which is today's episode. So Manan, why don't you summarize for us? Why do we need values?
So sticking with your nautical metaphor, when the fog descends and one can't see ahead, or the sandbanks shift, values help us stay on course. Not a map, values, which is why the compass is really relevant. It gives you a sense of direction. In the midst of an emotional storm, values provide grounding and help us reconnect with our strengths. When a storm tips us into the water, values help us stay afloat and keep up the battle for survival. Values are like the sails that catch the wind and help us keep the momentum on the long road of life goals. Values guide us and give us a sense of direction. They anchor us amidst emotional turmoil and keep us safe and provide us the oomph to do the hard yards that life needs us to do.
And I really like that metaphor that you've put with values. And in the second aspect of the HOPE framework, we will dive into values. What are values? How are values different from life goals and actions, and why we need them? We will also discuss the 4 domains of life and what might be the most important values for you in each domain. But before we go any further, do you want to do a quick recap for the previous couple of episodes?
Yeah, that's a good point. So in the first episode, in this section, we talked about acceptance. We talked about how emotional pain is nature's way of communicating that something important to you is amiss. We also talked about what matters to you. What matters to you, that might reveal your source of emotional pain, but it might also reveal your source of hope. We then, in the next episode, talked about identifying actions that help and those that harm. What helps, what harms, what hurts, what hinders. And that is a way that we could move from unconscious stress reactions to a conscious stress response. So we've already covered that. And if you haven't listened to the previous 2 episodes, I would strongly recommend
to go back and listen to
those episodes. Otherwise, some of this might not make much sense.
And I think this is a good place to mention to actually download the app. Obviously, if you're driving, don't touch your phone. But when you have a spare moment, go onto Google Play Store or Apple Store and download Safe Life Guide so you can follow along. So, on the HOPE view of the app, values are displayed under Step 2. You can undertake the values clarification exercise by clicking on Add. The input screens that open up will allow you to personalize the section to the most important values in the different life domains. So let's dive into what are values. Manan, how do you define values?
So there are many definitions, but the one that I really like are values are the qualities I want to bring to my actions. Values are the qualities I want to bring to my actions. It's simple, it's clear. So here are some pointers which might help you discover your personal values. Ask, what are the qualities I want to embody in the way I interact with myself and others in the world around me? Is it courage, discipline, dignity? Is it gratitude, humility, respect? What kind of mother, father, brother, sister, son, daughter, spouse, friend, colleague do I want to be? Is it love, kindness, compassion, or is it commitment, challenge, empowerment? What do I want to model in life? What do I want to model for others in life? Is it justice, fairness, equity?
But why is it so important to know what my core values are?
Well, values inspire us to take action, pursue goals, give us the motivation to do the hard yards when life gets tough. Values infuse our life with meaning and purpose. So, if we want our life to be meaningful and purposeful, we need to know what our values are and then let those values guide us.
And remember, each section has got top tips embedded that open up on touching the information icon. The most important one is the one for values that opens up the questions that Manan just mentioned.
You can use these questions for the values clarification exercise. You can also view or print a values list if you wanted to from the app. When you're going to add a new value or edit one of the values that is already there, we have put in some examples in there. So our suggestion will be to do this exercise, the values clarification exercise, with someone else. It may be a close friend, a family member, a colleague, someone who gets you. Get them to download the app and have conversations about which values are the most important to them and which values are the most important to you and why is that the case. It's the conversational stuff in which you will discover aspects of this, which otherwise, doing it by yourself, you might not.
To make the list navigable, we have limited the number to 100. Most common values can be found in this list, and if you do not find a specific value, inevitably there will be a synonym in the list or a closely related value. Now, in the Protect training, you talk a lot about why it is important to understand how values differentiate out from similar concepts like goals or rules or morals. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, put simply, values are not goals and goals are not values. Goals are what I want to get, what I want to have, what I want to achieve. Values are how I want to achieve those goals, how I want to behave when I achieve my goal or do not achieve my goal.
Okay, is there a simpler way to differentiate out values from goals?
You are probably not talking about values if you cannot say it in one word. If you're needing a phrase or a sentence, you're not talking about values, more like a rule or a commandment or a belief system. Particularly if they include words like should, have to, must, want, or right, wrong, good, bad. Values are not rules about right or wrong. Thou shalt not kill is a commandment. The value underlying the commandment is of love, right? Loving human life, or respect for human life.
And you often talk about a travel metaphor to explain the difference. Can you share that?
Okay, so let's imagine a direction of travel. As for example, traveling east. Let's imagine I'm in London. From London, I'm flying to Paris, Moscow, Delhi, Tokyo, LA, New York, back to London. Again, Paris. There is no end to east. Wherever one is, there is more east. Values are like traveling east, endless. A goal, on the other hand, is a destination. As for example, getting to Paris, that can be ticked off the list. So when I get to Moscow, I can tick it off the list. When I get to Delhi, I can tick it off the list. And actions are steps to reach that destination. Like, in order to get to Paris, I'll need to buy tickets, book time off work, pack a suitcase, get to the airport, and so on. So you got values, which are endless, that are ongoing, and then you got goals that are finite and defined, that you can tick off a list, and then you got actions that get you to your goals while you are enacting a value in your life.
Okay, let me see if I've got this.
Have a go.
Wherever one is, there is more east to go. Living by one's values like kindness, respect, curiosity is like living with a direction of travel in mind.
Absolutely.
Reaching a destination does not bring an end to the journey, only new beginnings.
Oh, wow.
So when one is traveling in a direction, like living by certain values, the destinations that you will reach will be very different to the destinations in another direction. So whatever be the domain, say work, leisure, love, health, values guide the way in which we reach our destination.
Absolutely.
So using your words, values guided committed decisions and actions, some small, some big, help us reach our goals. And some goals may be distant, perhaps unreachable, but the values can still be lived in the here and now, resulting in a life that feels meaningful.
Wow, that was absolutely spot on. Where did that come from? But, that was a really good explanation. So now if we go a little bit concrete, so from this metaphor of traveling east, let's pick a value, say love or kindness, right? They are very common values that many people aspire to, right? So whether that be as a couple or as a parent, values are the glue that hold our actions together as we work towards our life goals. So take marriage, okay, or becoming a father or a mother. That's a goal that many would have. It can be achieved and ticked off a list. How I want to behave in my marriage, though, involves values, loving, caring, respectful. Underpinning the goal with values can make the journey easier in difficult times. As a husband or a wife, mother or father, we can take many loving actions to live the value of love and kindness. And also, actions aligned to values can be taken even in the absence of a partner or a child. You can use the values of love, care, and respect in the here and now, irrespective of whether you are in a loving relationship or not. Even after a heartbreak, you can live your values, although the destination might seem distant and the road might seem tortuous.
And this may not be relevant for everyone, but given we have a focus on suicide prevention, can you explain how values help?
Yes, you're right to point out the connection with suicide prevention. So imagine inspiring a donkey with a carrot or motivating a donkey using a stick. Okay. So the harsh inner voice of the person in suicidal distress often has phrases like, I should, I must, I have to. That often serves as the initial motivation, say for staying safe. It's a stick that protects in the short run and forces the person to engage in safety planning and actions that may bring pain relief. However, fear of pain as a motivating factor is tiresome and begins to fade with time, particularly if the situation doesn't resolve. Herein lies the importance of values in suicide prevention. They are the carrot that can inspire and motivate us when the going is tough. Identifying and aspiring to live a life in line with one's values can help replace the stick, which is fear of pain, right? Fear of emotional pain. I'm doing these things because I want to chip away at my pain and because the pain is intolerable. You can replace that stick, that fear of pain, with a carrot, the person I want to be, and conserve energy for the long run and help build resilience to future storms.
Yeah, and I guess you can apply the same principle to other life goals, like getting in shape. Let's say you can go to the gym because you're worried about becoming fat, so that harsh inner voice is like, I have to, I should, and that's the stick. Or
like those are like the rigid beliefs that you have about why I'm going to the gym.
Or you can go to the gym because you believe in self-care and having me time for self-nurturing, and I guess you can say that's the carrot.
Same result, different ways to go about it, and preserving energy for the long run. It goes for any activity in life. Say, going to work. I go to work to avoid the stress in my marriage or to pay the bills, etc. But if we flip it, going to work to provide security for your family, security being the value, or because I care about providing for my family, caring being the value. Same driver, framed slightly differently through the values telescope.
And on the app, when we go in to add a value, we have these life domains, and essentially the app prompts you to think about the values that are most important to you in each domain. So, Manan, why have you broken up life into these arbitrary chunks?
So, identifying values that define who we are may be quite a challenging proposition for many. So, it's primarily to make it easier. That's why we have chunked up life into these 4 principal domains. I know it's artificial: work, love, play, and health. Clearly, each domain influences the other, and there is significant overlap, and the compartments might feel arbitrary. Yes, I agree. However, rather than thinking generally, the specificity of the domains does help focus the mind about which values are most important in each domain.
So you want people to look at the values list and ask themselves, if values are the qualities I want to bring to my action, how do I want to behave at work?
Exactly. So when you have the domain of employment or education open, how do I want to behave at work? How do I want to behave when I'm studying? When you have relationships open, how do I want to behave in my most loving relationships? How do I want to behave during my leisure? How do I want to behave when I invest in my growth or health? So each domain, very similar questions.
And from the list, you can pick out the most important ones for you in a particular life domain by asking the questions that are there in the values top tips.
The goal is to map out the values under the different life domains. Remember, values can be expressed in a word, and you can get a value that is important in multiple domains of life. Like you might aspire to be respectful in all interactions, whether they be at home, in loving relationships, or at work, in the professional sphere. To keep the app interface simple, we are asking you to choose the most important value in a domain.
So other than respect, can you provide an example of a value that cuts through these domains?
Okay, so let's pick something random, say connection. Okay, you may want to connect meaningfully with customers at work, or connect during your leisure hours with your fishing buddy. You might want to connect at home with your partner, with your children. And you may want to start a connection for personal growth with a psychologist. So yeah, that's all 4 life domains, and I picked one value, and that value could cut across all domains.
And what if there are many values in a life domain that seem important?
So, okay, an example may be easier. Let's pick a domain, let's say work. There may be 4 or 5 values that seem important from a list like which has got 100 values on it. So you might pick accomplishment, authenticity, sincerity, humor. We all want to have a bit of fun at work, etc. Right? But if you could narrow it down, so if you're struggling that, I've got too many values, narrow it down to something specific. For example, say the person who wants to connect with his customers, let's say he works in customer service, and he narrows it down to customer service, which may be one aspect of the work domain, and then he might quickly arrive at his top 2, like patience
or helpfulness.
Helpfulness, yeah. So that's a good example.
And you can print out a list and go through a process of ticking the values that are important, then putting a second tick to shorten the list, and then a third one if need be. And if you were doing it straight on the app, when you start typing in a value, predictive text will help you make your selection.
Yeah, that predictive text is quite nice.
Yeah.
So, when you start typing, say, courage, so you put in CO, and you might get courage, you might get commitment, you might get other values.
The different ones,
you might get compassion, you could. So the predictive text does help you. So let's recap a little bit. In the choice of life domain, when you narrow it down, choose something that you want to work on. So whichever domain you want to work on, choose that domain. And if you've got too many values, narrow it down. It's time to bring the values to life through your actions. So you're asking yourselves, how can I live my values this month, this week, today, this hour? And less is more. Keep repeating the values clarification exercise, as Mahi mentioned, putting ticks till you're down to your most important value. And of course, you can repeat it if you need to for the same domain. You can have a second value or a third value, and you can repeat it for other life domains as well.
Manan, what values have you got on your values card?
All right, let's get into the app then. So, okay, here we are. So under health or growth, I have got vitality.
Okay.
And when you touch it, it kind of flips around and gives you the meaning. Being strong, energetic, and active. And with my recent neck pain, I think that's a really important value for me. Have you got something for health or growth?
Yeah, so I've got balance, which is harmony between responsibilities. I think it's important to keep your balance if you're trying to eat healthy, having a good balance of foods, working out, but also rest.
Okay. And
play and leisure. What's your value?
I put down fun.
Oh, same.
Same, you put down fun,
Yeah.
light-hearted pleasure.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to find fun in different aspects of life, because and it's just a little reminder. These values cards are little reminders to, and you can customize these images as well that you've got.
Yeah.
What have you got for work or study? Have you got one?
Yeah, I've got commitment.
And I've got autonomy. So autonomy is power to make own choices. And that's a really important value for me, because if someone tells me what to do and what not to do, that's a sure shot way of ensuring that I won't do it. If someone is kind of tying up my hands.
Yeah.
How does commitment work out for you?
So commitment on the back of the card says being dedicated to a cause or activity. Obviously, if you're working or you're studying, commitment is what you need to get through your task.
And in loving relationships, have you got something?
Yeah, I've got accountability.
Accountability. Oh, so I can hold you to that if that's the value you're trying to live.
Okay. And yours?
I've got kindness, and I know that when I get really wound up, I can be quite unkind. So it's a bit reminder to me to be generous, helpful, and caring. That's the description that's there. And when you go in, you can customize it. You can click on the edit the pencil button, and it takes you into values that I aspire to live by. And right on the top right hand corner, there are 3 dots. When you click on that, it says personalized image, and you can put an image that is most relevant to you for that value. And that's an image speaks 1,000 words. So that's a really cool feature of this app, that you can add images. Even in the safety planning section, you can add images, and you will have that image as the backdrop for that value.
And there's also the video as well.
Oh, yes, that's really
I
important.
think that's important to mention.
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that we have covered in the podcast today, you will find on the video. Then you got select a live domain, their top tips, select the most important value in the live domain, where you can get all the values there. You can view a values list. You can print it straight from the computer, and then you save changes, and it becomes a little tiny little flip card on your app that you can remind yourself.
Okay, so I think we're running out of time. Do you want to summarize?
Gosh, it's already gone past 8:30 p.m. on Friday night, yes, in Brisbane. And I've got a meeting at 9 with some potential collaborators in Gambia. Actually,
okay.
Yeah. Let's see how that goes. I might be able to share some of that in the next podcast episode. So that's in less than half an hour.
Yeah, we'll be waiting for your update.
Yes, it's again part of our philanthropic commitment, just like the work that we were trying to do in Peru, in Africa, trying to get suicide prevention into the developing world. So,
Your summary?
yes, okay. So you will remember our composite diagram of actions appraisal from the previous episode.
Yep.
Actions that help, actions that hinder, hurt, or harm. Actions that take me towards the person I want to be, and actions that take me away from the person I want to be. So in the second step of the HOPE framework, we have reframed actions that take me towards the person I want to be as values-guided, committed actions, and actions that take me away from the person I want to be as pain-guided, desperate measures. So let me repeat that. So actions that help me be the person I want to be, that take me towards the person I want to be, are values-guided, committed actions, and actions that take me away from the person I want to be, actions that hinder, hurt, or harm me, they are often pain-guided, desperate measures.
And needless to say, we want to be in a headspace where we are guided by our values and not the pain. But for that to happen, it is important for you to know the qualities that you want to bring to your actions, your values. So have a go at the values clarification exercise when you're in a good headspace. So before we say goodbye to our listeners, any final messages?
I actually got 2 messages.
Okay.
So, so we bring this value section to an end. So I want you all to close your eyes for 30 seconds and think of a helpful action or step that you have taken recently, and ask, what values did that action relate to? You will often find that the value anchored you or helped you move towards what matters to you, right? So this is a nice segue to let you all know that the next podcast will be about life goals, people and pursuits that matter to you. But in the interim, have a go at the values clarification exercise. So that's kind of message number one. And message number two would be 7th of July, sorry, got that wrong.
9th of July.
9th of July, yes, 9th of July, 7 p.m., 9th of July 2024, because the podcasts stay live for a very long period of time. So it's important to mention 9th of July 2024, 7 p.m., we are hosting a webinar for people who are working in the NDIS and supporting people in suicidal distress using the Safe Life Guide. So if there are people who are interested, who you believe will benefit, please tell them, let them know. We will put the link of the Teams meeting in the show notes, but also on LinkedIn. And they can email us at admin@progress.guide, RSVP in, so that we know how many people are attending, because spaces are limited. We don't want the bandwidth to blow out, so we want to stay connected in the Teams meeting. So we'll really appreciate your help in getting the word out.
Have the most wonderful day, guys.
And thank you very much for listening. Speak to you all soon in a week's time.
Goodbye.